Hey, welcome to a new episode of Last Call Baseball, number 164. I'm Dorian. Right off the bat, I have a question for you. Do you prefer to have an audio experience with unlimited commercials interrupting in the middle of conversations? This is not the podcast for you. We present this podcast without interruptions because we like to have fun. I can't stand commercials. I love podcasts. I hate when I'm really into listening to a conversation and then boom, you get commercials for nonsense. I like to have fun. People like to have fun at baseball stadiums. And I was watching a game last week back on Monday, August 12th. The Atlanta Braves were playing at San Francisco against the Giants. They were there it's a 4-game series between the Giants and the Braves. There was some dude in the audience, in the stands, because everyone's favorite umpire, CB Buckner, was calling balls and strikes behind the plate. There was this dude, and I watched 3 of those games from between the Giants and the Braves. I swear to you, he attended every single game that I watched. Unfortunately, CB Buckner he's kind of infamous for being bad at his job. And he calls strikes when they're nowhere near the strike zone. And CB Buckner, as usual, was cheating right-handed batters because he kept giving the left side of the plate, far left side of the plate, as part of the strike zone. Clearly not being the strike zone, CB Buckner would be like, strike. And there was this dude in the crowd. The very few times that CB Buckner actually didn't expand his strike zone, this dude in the crowd was like, that looked good, CB. Every time. And you heard him perfectly. It was almost as if he was an announcer. And I'm like, how in the world is this guy coming through on TV? He must have been sitting right next to the microphone so that pick up the sounds of the crowd, or he must have a couple of set of lungs on him. I'm telling you, he would mix it up. Again, when CB Buckner would actually get a good call on the left side of the plate on the outside, not expanding the strike zone, he'd say that looked good, CB. And then later in the game, when CB Buckner didn't give the pitcher that ridiculously large strike zone, this guy, obviously he was rooting for the San Francisco Giants. He said, come on, CB. It was comedy. I don't know who this guy is, but they need to have him back. Hopefully he's a season ticket holder. And if he is a season ticket holder, they need to give him a discount, because I would watch more Giants games if I can hear this guy. Or I haven't been to a San Francisco Giants game in person. I need to go to the Bay Area. It was a good road trip, at least. It was a good series, at least for the Braves. They won 3 of those 4 games. But that dude, I'm telling you, he added flavor and color to the experience, to my TV watching experience. And our next guest has a lot of experience in entertainment, baseball, and colors. I'm happy to be talking this week with our special guest, Andy Brown, a sports artist. Andy, welcome to Last Call Baseball.
Thanks very much for having me along. It's a pleasure to be here.
Andy, is it true that the only reason you started painting cricket is to
Yeah,
winter in the West Indies?
that does help. It really does help. But like I didn't necessarily start baseball because of this, but as you well know, they play baseball everywhere all year round. So I've spent winters in Dominican Republic and Panama and Nicaragua and all sorts of places. So you can always get some sun, even if you're British. Like, you don't have to just stay here on this island.
When I saw your website that you did a series, and then you also published a book in Spanish for the I think 2 or 3 years ago when you were in the Dominican Winter Leagues.
Correct.
I go crazy. I love the Latin Winter Leagues.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned Nicaragua. I watched the Nicaraguan Winter League because
Oh yeah.
here in the U.S. you have they show them on YouTube, so the games are for free,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
obviously Major League Baseball isn't played. So I love that. Like,
Yeah.
tell me how your experience was in those countries you mentioned when you were either
Oh
traveling and working or
yeah.
working and traveling.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, I guess the thing that started with me painting baseball was it's all about culture. For me, it's all about culture. My work, my artwork's always been connected to culture and about who we are. That's essentially it. And originally, like, just to go back, and I'll try not to forget your question. I started making my kind of big thing before baseball was pictures of the Queen. I was making portraits of Queen Elizabeth II. I was making them out of tea bags a lot, and it was all to do with my relationship with the Queen, the world's relationship to the Queen and monarchy and the ideas of a nation and a monarch and empire and all this sort of thing. So I was making pictures of the Queen out of tea bags, and yeah,
But Andy, the
somehow
real
that's
que-
led me into baseball
the real
and
question
painting.
here,
Yeah.
what tea?
Oh, that is a good question.
Because I
You know,
have a particular tease. I just wanted to I have to know. I'm curious.
that's a good question. You know, the first and the original one was the cheapest tea I could get my hands on, which I think was Tesco Value, which
Oh,
was
I was gonna say a Tetley's or whatever. Was it
yeah,
the
no,
purple brand one?
originally I did it when I was at university. That was 2002. That was the first one, and I think it was the cheapest tea bag to get my hands on, which were Tesco Value. I can't remember how much they were, but that was 22 years ago, so they were cheaper than what they are now. And you get loads of them for not very much money. I was a student, so um, but there was that. I mean, I did, I did a picture of the Queen in 2022 because it was a platinum jubilee. It was 20 years since I'd done the first one, and I thought, you know what, I'll update it. You know, it's been 20 years. You know, time passes, and again, I guess my relationship with the Queen, the country's relationship with the monarchy, all this sort of things, they're kind of changing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a new one. Did a new one, and of course, she passed away a couple of months after that, and then now got a new monarch to do. So I'm planning to do every monarch of my lifetime. I'm going to make a pit portrait of them out of tea bags. So that's an ongoing project. That's kind of a side thing. But I'm trying to actually think. We've completely already gone off on a tangent, which I love, but also I'm very bad at that. The original question was something to do with being in the Dominican, weren't it? And what it's like over there and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff, right?
in the Latin countries when you
Yeah.
were doing your
Well,
traveling or working.
my good. How do we get on to tea bags? Anyway, but yeah, I love it. Like that sort of thing. It was all to do with like baseball for me and my relationship with baseball, painting about baseball, my work with baseball was all to do with culture, who we are, what we do, who we like, who we don't like, how do we celebrate, who do we worship, what's these sorts of things, what songs do we sing, and um, and that's been the thing that's taken me all around the world. So in Latin America, the vibe, the emotion, the atmosphere is so different to anywhere else. To different to the States, different to baseball here in Europe, different to baseball in Asia, and I love it. Like it is loud, raucous, passionate beyond belief, and you get these amazing sights, you get these amazing smells, you get these amazing situations that come up. You also get amazing geography. I remember we mentioned Nicaragua there. I remember painting a game there. I was learning some Spanish in a place over there, and I had a few days out of this city to watch the baseball. And I'm painting the game, and I'm trying to mind my own business, little watercolor doing it in my sketchbook. And then I was looking, and I was got the guy on first base and guy on second base. There's a shortstop, okay, and there's some trees at the back there, and blah blah blah, whatever else. And then I remember looking over, and there was some kind of clouds over in the right field, and I was like, oh, there's some clouds, all right, so I'm getting the clouds in. And then all of a sudden, I realized there was a volcano over there, and I was like, what the hell? Like, there's a volcano right there. Like, where am I? This is crazy. So I love that. Like the geography changes, the people change, the food change, and my artwork changes. You know, it changes where I am, what I'm doing. It's always different, and it's always I'm just feeding off that, and I guess trying to work out, I don't know, what life's all about, who we are, what baseball does for us, what games do for us, what community means, all these sorts of things. And I guess a lot of my work for me is looking at the differences and the similarities between us all. What we all believe in, what our similarities are, what our differences are. But most of the time, we're very, very similar. We're just doing things in slightly different ways.
I highly encourage everyone to go onto your website and see some of your work if you're not already familiar with it. And when I started coming across it, I don't know, I guess like a few weeks ago or whenever I originally
Yeah,
reached out to you, is I don't know if someone's told you this, and I mean this in the best possible way.
yeah.
The pieces I've seen are almost gelatinous. They're like captured in action, and I'm looking
Oh
at
yeah,
it, and for like half a second, I'm like, wait, are people moving?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
very unique because normally when you go to museums, you'll go to
Mhm.
the equestrian, they call it the sport wing of some museum, and it's
Yeah.
usually horses. But this is very different in the fact that you're not capturing action. It's almost as if you've congealed action.
Yeah, essentially, you've hit the nail on the head. Like to me, it's the experience of being in that country at that ball game for the 2, 3, 4 hours or whatever, however long I'm there for. and it's not really necessary. It's very rarely one moment. It's usually like it's like a time lapse. It's like a sped up. It's like a time lapse in a painting. So the popcorn vendor walks past. Or in Cuba, there was the guy who was selling, sandwiches out of a cardboard box. So okay, he goes in. Then there's the guy selling Tropicola in Cuba. Okay, he goes in. And then somebody might hit a home run. Everyone starts cheering. Okay, so you're putting people cheering. And then there's the mascot half, between the innings. Okay, so we put him in. So it's a build up of all the things I've experienced, the sights, the sounds, the feelings. So it's more like it's painting time as well. It's like I say, sometimes it might be one specific moment, but it rarely is. Like that's not really what I'm trying to do. It's much more about the feeling of the whole place. But I guess through my style, you have to paint quite quickly because you've got a very limited amount of time. You do want to capture the players kind of as they are. So I'll look at Mookie Betts, or I'll look at whoever's standing on first base, or the pitcher, and okay, how's he stand before the windup? And okay, so I'm trying to get those things as they are, but also, of course, they're moving around, and it's impossible. Like, you're not going to get like every crinkle and fold on the uniform. It's an impression of it. I'm an impressionist, mate, essentially.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah, so
struck me. Yeah, I was impressed. It struck me
thanks very
in a
much.
way that I
Yeah,
didn't think that can be done. And
yeah,
you had mentioned that you started. I don't want to say you started. You had
yeah,
mentioned that you were working on a piece of Queen Elizabeth II back in when
yeah,
you were at university.
yeah,
Why did you choose painting versus
yeah,
writing versus using your
yeah, yeah,
voice with an
yeah, yeah,
instrument? Like, why
yeah.
is painting your instrument on to communicate with the world, basically?
Yeah, I had a good teacher. I had a great teacher when I was. I mean, I've had a few good teachers, influential people in my life who have pushed me along with it. My aunt is kind of very artistic. She never really got into it professionally properly, but she always encouraged me, bought me my first set of pencils, all that sort of thing. And then at you'd call it middle school, I guess, middle and high school, I had an excellent teacher, secondary school, Christine Lloyd Chowdhury. Shout out to her, and she was amazing. Like, I think she saw something in me and knew I was kind of the guy who might get it and understand it, and that was completely right. And she just like pushed the button, and that was it. I was off and away. And then I was just painting, drawing, making, creating. And then in the last little while, like when I was living in South Korea for a while, we'll maybe get to that at some point. But I was doing quite a lot of photography, but still more painting. And I was making old tintype photos. I was doing some pinhole photography of like shoe boxes and all sorts of boxes, doing photos of like baseball stadiums with these shoe boxes. And they were great. I loved them. And then I was doing these wet plate tintypes. So it was like I was using an old press camera, a large format press camera. It was with
What is it? You go behind the curtain and stuff like that. Is that what you're
yeah,
talking about?
exactly. It
The
was that sort of
tripod,
thing. It was exactly that
very
sort of
very
thing.
1910s.
It was, well, you see, a little history lesson. What was it? I think it's 1852. Wet plate clothes or tin types were invented, or 1851. I can't remember now. But basically, at that point, I remember looking at these photos, and I was like, "Wow, like I want to take photos like that. How do I do that?" And I went to the photo shops in Seoul where I was living at the time, and I was like, "Okay, I want to do this. How do I do that?" And they were like, "Up sale," which just means you just can't do that. We haven't got that. Of course, it's 150 years ago or whatever. So then I found out that you can't actually really, or at that point, certainly in Korea, you couldn't get hold of that stuff. So what you have to do is you have to make the film yourself. So it's a mixture of all these different chemicals. So I was a teacher, I was teaching art. So I went to see the chemistry department, and I was like, okay, I want to do this, and I need this and this and this and this and this. Is that possible? Yeah, okay, we can get that. But they're kind of curious why, because it's almost bomb making equipment. It was like highly flammable, like crazy stuff. So I learned a lot about chemistry. It was great. It was brilliant. I've never been so interested in chemistry. And yeah, I started doing this stuff where you got this, it's like a gel where you pour it onto the piece of metal. You have to put it into the silver nitrate, I think, to make it light sensitive. And then you have to get it in the back of the camera. You take your photo. And then once you take your photo, you've got about 20 minutes to get it developed. Before it won't work. So I was doing that, and that was fantastic. I loved it. But I was doing that and the painting. And then it got to the point I was like, I can only really do one of these. Like, I can't do both. It was too much. So I had a dark room at the back of my van, or back in the car that I had at the time, this cardboard box with little armholes and all this. So I just couldn't do it all. So I was like, right, I'm going to stick with the painting. So carried on with that. And then that's kind of been it. And I've never regretted the decision or whatever, because it was always like, I think, I love color. I love the fact that with painting, we don't see the world like a photograph. We don't even see it like a painting, really. And it's that Cubist Picasso kind of thing that you turn your head, like we're always moving, everything's always moving around us. So I want to be able to do that in a painting. It doesn't matter if the thing's behind me. If I think it's important, I can put it in the painting. And I love that again, it's telling your story, it's your language. It's what's important to me. As much as it's, about everybody else in the stadium, I feel like, of course, I'm the author, I'm the guy doing it. So it's kind of my story while I'm there as well. So that's how paint kind of came through, I guess, in the end.
I really like the description you said about the world is constantly moving. Well, no, the world
Yeah.
isn't constantly moving. We're moving, and therefore our perception of it
Mm.
is moving.
Hmm.
You traveled basically all over the world doing
Hmm.
your work, and I
Hmm.
saw a lot of your work is baseball, and specifically recently very cricket heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
This year a
as a
lot.
sports fan, you're working during these matches, during these
Hmm.
games, during these test series.
Yeah.
Can you enjoy a baseball game? Can you actually enjoy a
Oh,
cricket
yeah.
match?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can completely enjoy them. There's no doubt that at times I miss things. At times I miss something might happen. I've missed it. Somebody gets caught or bowled out in cricket or whatever else. So I've missed it maybe. But I'm also seeing way more cricket, way more baseball, way more sports than I would have ever seen if I stayed as a teacher. So I'm at so many sporting events and so many things. So now I love it. I love it. And, back in, when was this, 2022, I was with Great Britain. I'm like the Great Britain's team's artist. So when Great Britain are playing somewhere, I'll be with them painting the games, but also painting behind the scenes, the players, portraits, the coaches, the coaching sessions, the guys doing workouts, the guys on the physio's bench getting, sorted out. And in 2022, when Regensburg, it was the World Baseball Classic qualifiers, and we were playing Spain, and it was the if we win that match, we go through to the WBC. Oh my goodness, it was really cold for one, so that didn't help. But also, I was so nervous. I'm shaking, like shaking with like, we've got to do this, we've got to do this, and it's like so invested in the game, so invested in the team. But also I'm there to do my job. So I'm also there to, okay, I'm here to paint these guys. So I've got to do that. So I'm there doing that. But yeah, I know what's going on. I guess I rely a lot on my ears with these sorts of things. I can hear a home run, I can hear a foul ball, I can hear when it's coming close to me, all that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I love it. Like I love the whole thing. Without a doubt, it changes the dynamics. There's times when I think, oh, it'd be nice to just come along and just sit and watch the game as a fan.
Right.
But also, even when I've ever done that, I'm kind of looking around and thinking, oh, look at that guy over here, and look at that funny shirt he's got on, and you thinking, oh, how would I paint that? And I don't know, look at the beautiful sky and the sunset, and okay, I'll do this and do this. So I'm still thinking about the painting, so I might as well be doing the painting, I guess.
You mentioned the World Baseball Classic that, as you said,
Yeah,
Great Britain. It was great that so many new baseball nations were able to participate in the World Baseball Classic, which
absolutely.
is like the World Cup for baseball. Czech
Yeah,
Republic, Great
yeah,
Britain,
yeah.
and I was laughing a little bit when you're saying how cold it was in Germany for the
Freezing,
qualifier.
freezing.
Speaking of the West Indies, how cold was it for some of the British players who are from the Bahamas? I'm
Ah,
trying to
yeah,
remember their name. There's like a
yeah,
picture. I think there's a couple of
yeah, yeah,
players
yeah,
from the old
yeah,
the
yeah,
old
yeah, yeah,
colonial
yeah,
islands.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like they must
British,
have been.
British, the BVI guys, the British Virgin Island guys. Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think they like it. Like
I
it
think
was, it was freezing,
they're still
freezing.
uncoagulated right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's you with this work, I've got used to painting in most conditions. There's too hot, too cold, windy, beautiful. Every day, you've got something different going on, so you've got to get ready for that.
I read that you've been written up a lot in newspapers all around the world, India, Dominican Republic,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
One of your claims to fame is that you've painted all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums.
correct. Yeah.
Do you want to do something like that equally for like all the cricket clubs in England
Oh
or
yeah,
Australia
yeah,
or Pakistan?
yeah. Like the work never ends. Like it's once I got one, I guess I'm a collector, I guess. And it's like, I can't just have one. Like I've got to have the set. So it's like, okay, I was in Korea. I started painting, the first base was stayed I'm at. Okay, do a little painting of that. Then I go to another place. Okay, that's good. Do two. Okay, that's not enough. I've got to do all of them now. And then Japan, same. So I went all around. I remember going all around Japan, did them all. And then I was like, okay, I've done all the interiors. So now I've got to do the exteriors. So I went back and did all the exteriors of them. So it's like, yeah, it to me. There's never an end because even in the same stadium, when I was in Seoul, I'd go to Jamshil Stadium a lot. It's always different. Every game's different. Every atmosphere is different. Every night's different. Every how I feel every day is different. Every minute's different. So like that's all part of it. It doesn't matter if I'm sat in the same seat, same stadium, whatever. It's a completely fresh, different day, different feeling. different Andy Brown, different crowd around me. So I want to make it's that day. That's the thing.
I'd love to be able to do this is to get one of yours, the Lancashire Cricket Club. What is it?
Hmm.
Old Trafford.
I'm there next week.
Where is that? What's the
Manchester.
state? No, I know, yeah, but the stadium is called the Old
Old
Trafford
Trafford. Old
Cricket
Trafford.
Ground.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Old
I
Trafford.
used
Yeah.
I've been trying to tell people who because I tell people cricket and baseball are cousins.
Hmm.
And I remember going
Hmm.
to matches and specifically smartly 2020 matches because I don't think
Yeah. Right.
Americans
Right.
can
Right.
do a 4 game test series. Not yet.
Correct. Correct.
That's
Yeah.
that's in the deep end.
Yeah. 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 Correct. I think I was saying to somebody, I think just yesterday, because I was painting some cricket here in England yesterday at the rugby school where the game rugby is invented. That's where it was invented. So I was down there painting two teams playing Warwickshire and who was yesterday? Warwickshire and Nottinghamshire. And I was saying, I think it's easier for my American friends. T20 is like that's like the gateway. But there's still a lot of barriers. And I think it's easier for a Brit who likes cricket to go to baseball than probably for an American who likes baseball to come to cricket. Because as soon as you go into test cricket and you go, I remember telling a mate of mine, Dave in Detroit, right, yeah, I'm going around all around India painting the cricket. And he's like, oh, who's playing? I was like, well, it's England versus India. Okay, right. And then I went to the next game and he was like, oh, who's playing? And I was like, well, it's England versus India. And he said, oh. And then the third game. And he was like, hang on, is it the same two teams are playing each other over and over and over again for 5 days each, all around India? And I was like, yeah, of course they are. I mean, come on. It's cricket. That's what we do. But, it is beautiful. I think there are huge similarities. Like you said, they're cousins. That would be a good way of putting it. I think they are there's this it's the same thing you've got to like give it time. It's like a slow burn, and that's what I like about both. Like there's those immediate moments where you think, oh my goodness, this is fantastic, but then the more you get into it and the more you scratch, then the more you get deeper and deeper and deeper, and you realize, oh my goodness, like, it's beautiful. It's got so many levels to it, and like we talked about before, you can be into the stats, you can be into the uniforms, you can be into the, I don't know, the food, you can be into the travel, you can be into it in so many different ways, and that's great. Like, it doesn't matter. It's whatever, however you enjoy it, wonderful.
And another thing is the experience when you're in the stands. I'm talking about watching 2020 cricket
Yeah.
and just American baseball, or just baseball
Yeah.
is in England, you can actually bring and buy multiple beers. Maybe they've changed the rules, but you can
Hmm.
actually drink a beer in the stands versus at a
Yeah.
football match, soccer,
Yeah. No, you
you have
can't.
to drink it in the what is it, the causeway or
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
vending.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't bring it in. And in
No.
baseball,
Yeah.
that's
No.
kind of the charm to be able to just
Yeah.
sit there with your beer for the next
Of
hour or so
course.
and
Of course.
letting the action unfold in front of you.
Absolutely. Different paces. And yeah, it'd be too dangerous to do that in England to have guys drinking on the terraces. It'd be nuts. I mean, it's nuts already, but that's because they've been drinking it like back, in the tunnels for hours before. But yeah, it gets fun.
That's true. Again, you've traveled everywhere. I love traveling and I always have trouble packing. I try to pack as light as I can, but
Hmm.
inevitably things are too much.
Yeah.
And I'm just packing my stuff. How in the
Yeah.
world do you pack for you and your art tools?
Yeah, well, I probably pack more for the art tools than for myself. It's a constant concern. Have I got enough titanium white? Have I got enough cobalt blue? Do I even want cobalt blue? I don't want Prussian blue. Like, what's it going to be like? That keeps me up for hours or like days before I go. Even the type of canvas I'm going to paint on. Am I going to paint on polycotton? What ounce should it be? Maybe I'll go for cotton duck. Like, it is, like, I'm obsessed with it. Like, it is, it's almost, it's terrible because it's like I'm so anxious about it. But I know that once I get there, whatever I have, it will be fine because it's what you've got. You've got to get on with it. But I just don't want to get there and think I should have brought that or I haven't brought that. It is terrible. So, but I do have a checklist as well. Now I'm at the point where I kind of have my checklist and I've got a rough idea of like how much paint I'll use in a month, how much I'll use in a week, so I can kind of work out this is what I need. When I was over in India, it's hard to know what materials am I going to be able to get and where, how easy, how good is the quality going to be. I use like my materials. I never use anything but the best. They're like proper professional artist grades paints because I want them to be the best pigments. I want the best canvas. I want the best materials so I can do my best work. And yeah, you can't be sure in some places. So, you have to make sure you take enough, or you need to have a plan B. It's always good to have a plan B in almost everything, isn't it? So you figure it out. And with a bit of experience, on a few that, like I say, you've got to come up with plan Bs quickly sometimes. So you've got to
Yeah,
work it out.
for sure you have to adapt. This just came to my mind that again, cricket, baseball, other sports,
Yeah.
You go to a cricket stadium, there's cricket stadiums are just derivatives of each other. Some are much nicer, much grander, some are not.
Yeah,
Same thing with baseball. There's a lot
yeah,
nicer baseballs. And
absolutely.
I saw that you had went and worked at the one of the London series a few years
Yeah,
ago. Obviously,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
at Wembley. It's a traditional football or a massive arena for entertainment.
yeah.
And I don't know if you found out, but about a week or two ago, it came out that next year the Atlanta Braves are playing the Cincinnati Reds at a NASCAR
I saw
racetrack.
that. I
And
saw
when
that.
I was like, I'm going to
Yeah,
talk to you, and that is
amazing.
such a different
Yeah,
venue. What are
yeah,
your
yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
on that? Does that
Oh,
excite
amazing,
you or?
amazing. No, well, just the London. It's the London Stadium where they have the MLB London series. That's where West Ham plays. That's the former Olympic Stadium. So, how they convert that from it's Murray Cook. You know, he's like the MLB grounds guy, and he goes all around the world. And like when I talk to him, I always joke about it, like he builds the baseball fields and then I paint them. And he's been everywhere building these fields, and he's in quite a few of my paintings now. Because when I see him, he's always got his hat on. And then usually I'm like, okay, Murray, you're going in tonight's painting. So he's in like this year with MLB London with we had the Mets and the Phillies over. He's in, I think the game two, I think the Sunday day, I put him into the corner. He's in there. But the NASCAR thing was superb. I mean, why not? Like, wonderful. I like the fact that you can do that. I mean, the fact you can do that, how brilliant. Like, you can get it out to different fans in a different part of the country. Of course, they just did the Rickwood Field stuff. You had the Field of Dreams before, fantastic. MLB London's been brilliant. Like we haven't got, doesn't look like it's going to happen next year. It should be the year after. But just the way that fans can see baseball in a different place, in a different way, and in different countries. Like when we have it here in London, it's much more, it might be a Mets Phillies game, but it's not just Mets and Phillies fans. There were a lot of Mets and Phillies fans, but if you're a British baseball fan and you're going, then you may not support either the two teams, but they're wearing, there's Brave shirts, there's Yankee shirts, there's Red Sox shirts, there's everyone's there. So it's kind of cool how it's just the whole brings everyone together. It's like a bit of a festival of baseball, I guess, and I think it's really cool. I love it, and the NASCAR thing. I think again, different setting. Oh, it's fun. That'd be great.
Yeah, I still haven't looked. I saw the news, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
look into it. Like the
No,
logistics
no,
of,
no,
I
no.
am
Yeah.
not a, not that I don't like NASCAR, I'm just not a fan. And I
Right,
vaguely
right,
follow F1, but I'm
right.
like, how in the world are you turning this concrete oval
Yeah.
into grass and outfield?
No,
And it's just logistically, it doesn't almost make sense. But
no.
because of what I remember that I was talking to you, I'm like, okay, this is interesting because this is a completely different venue, even from a place like Rickwood, which is the
Yeah, yeah,
oldest. It's still a
yeah,
baseball stadium. It's the
yeah,
oldest historically still active
yeah.
field. Even the Field of Dreams, even though they just built it purpose for baseball. And this the NASCAR, I don't know what they call them, rinks, oil. I don't know. It's not
No,
baseball, and
no,
so
no, no, no,
I
no.
found it
No, in
interesting.
Murray, I trust. I think he's going to make it work. But without a doubt, I mean, that'd be wild, wouldn't it? Because I'm assuming like the track goes around and it's kind of like it goes higher, doesn't it? And all this can curve like that. I mean, I don't know. It'll be wonderful. Why not?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about talking to chemistry professors or associate professors
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
university in Seoul. The oval thing, I actually learned this. I think it was either in high school or in college. One of the science classes that the embankment I think is almost at
yeah.
like 100 or not a 90, but it's like at 100 degrees
Right, yeah,
because these NASCAR cars are going at like 150 miles an hour, and so if it was
yeah.
flat and they tried to turn, they would literally scoot
Oh,
off the
no
racetrack
way.
because
No way.
because they're just, what are they doing? They turn right. That's the whole joke about NASCAR. All they do is just turn right because they're
Oh, is
going in
that
an
right,
oval.
right, 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 right.
So
Well, I
on the
went to
embankments, it's very steep.
I went to the one in Indianapolis, the Speedway. I was there when I was going around the states doing all the 30 ballparks. Somehow I ended up in Indianapolis. I was going across east. I didn't know where to go for the night or whatever. And I thought, I'll stop in Indianapolis. And then there was the Indianapolis Pirates, and I wrote to them, and then it didn't work out for some reason. So the next day, I was like, what do I do with myself? So I went to that track, and it was superb. Like, again, I don't know anything about it. It doesn't look as interesting, possibly, as Formula One, but I don't really know. Like, but just being there, and I kissed the bricks. Apparently, it's the thing to do there. So I kissed the bricks, and it was superb. Like, it was one of the best kisses of my life, and I loved it. It was fantastic. So yeah, I'll be well into it. Let's see
I
what
hope
happens.
it's not the case where, in Ireland that they have, you're supposed to kiss some rock or whatever, and
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
locals,
yeah.
they do certain things on the rock at night. I hope that's not the case in Indianapolis.
I think
You
on the
know what I'm
tour, I
talking
think
about.
it's on a tour, so I think you've got to kiss them, but they've probably been snubbed a bit, but yeah,
You mentioned that you ended up in Indianapolis somehow because you were looking for a place to go. You've
yeah,
traveled almost around all around the world, maybe Antarctica. I don't know, maybe that's next. But when you like, what are some like memorable places when it comes to like food or drink or just yeah, like when it comes to obviously nourishing your belly, because without that, you
yeah.
won't be able to create any of your fine art.
Yeah, that's it. You have to make sure you're well fed and taken care of. You can't beat Mexico for ballpark food. Like Mexican ballpark food is fantastic. Like, just tacos. I mean, tacos are wonderful. So you've just got loads and loads of tacos, all different sorts of tacos. So Mexico's a
Are you
treat
gonna
to
have
have.
to? But for in Mexico, you're gonna have to pack like Pepto Bismol or because
No, no, it's all right. Like I've never,
because Mexico
I've
they
not.
have their own version of deli belly, and I'm when you're talking about
Yeah,
like street food in Mexico, I
yeah.
haven't
Oh
been. I've been to
no.
Mexico, but I haven't been to the baseball
Oh
stadiums.
no, it's great. Like no, it's great. To be fair, well, I guess touch wood. I've been pretty good health wise traveling. It's it's been good. But no, the ballpark food in Mexico is fantastic. Really for for us coming over there, very affordable and yeah, just so many flavors. Like I love like Mexican food, Indian food, Korean food. I feel like the amount of flavors they're putting into one dish is incredible. It's got so much depth to it. So Mexico's good. You can't beat like there's a lot of rum and things like that, of course, in Dominican, and that's fun. That always makes for an interesting experience, interesting night out. A lot of characters there, people who've been enjoying the ballpark for many years. Um, so yeah, it's but everywhere you go is kind of got its own thing. I mean, I'm trying to think where in Cuba, I'd say that you're not getting much. One of the things that I noticed with Cuba was how one of the big takeaway of Cuba for me was always the fact that I remember painting there, and I'm there. It was this would have been 2020. I think it's just before the COVID, before the pandemic that year. I was painting the national series, national finals, and I'm in the ballpark there painting, and I'm painting the boards and painting the landscape behind it and all that. And then I realized there's no adverts, there's no Nike, there's no Delta Airlines, there's no American Express or whatever. It was Comunidad, Patrismo, pictures of Shea, pictures of Fidel, flags on the 26th de Julio, like the revolution, and all this sort of thing. And I was like, wow, like that just it just hit like how different that is. There's nobody in the stands with merch on. They're not wearing the team shirt because you can't get the team shirt. There's not a there's not you can go to there's a little bar where maybe you can get maybe a drink and maybe a sandwich, but you can't get that much. And there's a guy giving out ham sandwiches out of a cardboard box or whatever, selling them, and then little newspaper wrap peanuts and all this. So again, it's just again, but I love the experience, the seeing of that. You realize, oh, this is a very different situation to baseball in the States or life in the States, and many different countries. So again, it's a lesson. It's a real teacher.
It's funny you're talking about Cuba because I think that was the winter that I watched the Cuban National Series on YouTube because it was free.
Yeah,
And I was struck, just like you, the lack of advertisement. And
yeah,
everything is like even the players have they like if their team colors like green and white, they just come up with a green batting helmet. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's what you would wear in high school.
yeah,
And
yeah,
their uniforms are very basic. Like there's
yeah.
no razzle
No,
dazzle.
no,
And
nothing.
they still had some good players. The one player I remember watching all the time was Cesar Prieto, who was the second
Yeah,
baseman for
yeah.
Los Elefantes de
Matanzas.
Cienfuegos. This is probably around 2020. So I'm
Ah,
surprised I didn't see you in the stands because you would have stood out.
I I think he might have been.
That was
I
his
think
last year before he defected or whatever. He just left.
you see, I thought he played for Matanzas, the
No, he
Crocodillos,
played
but
for Los Elefantes de Cienfuegos, the elephants from the town of 100
oh,
Fires. And I think they
okay,
were green
maybe.
and white.
Oh, okay. Maybe I've got the wrong guy. I thought I'm sure I know that guy, but I'll have to look at that. But yeah, no, yeah, that's
That was, yeah, the lack of
good play.
advertisement there is interesting. And the uniforms
Yeah,
are very, yeah, basic. But yeah.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's a sign of where they are. It tells you everything. Yeah,
I know that they don't have, I don't think they have baseball in Guatemala, but you're talking about rum. My favorite rum
yeah.
in the world is Ron Zacapa, the XO,
Okay,
like
okay. Ah,
their
yeah,
highest one.
yeah.
I mean, I would dab that behind my ears if I could. It's so good just to get it in your bloodstream. Just right
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Another good
yeah.
one. It's not as good as it used to be in Nicaragua, Flor de Caña,
I
which
didn't
you,
have that in
I mean,
Nicaragua. I was
maybe.
drinking the beer to be honest, so
Oh, okay. You're probably
I didn't
drinking
have the beer.
Toña or
Yeah, yeah,
Victoria,
Tonya. Yeah, Victoria.
but
Yeah, yeah,
Flor
yeah.
de
Tonya.
Caña is delicioso.
All
Maybe
right.
you remember that from your Spanish class,
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Okay. If I
and
ever
you
get
know, I
back to
realize
Nicaragua.
it sucks because in England, rum is, I think a lot of alcohol is so expensive. Beer
Hmm.
is cheaper than water in England or in Britain, actually, but there's just, yeah, there's not that there's no variety of rum. Gin, there's a lot of gin in Britain, but not
We do have a lot
rum.
of gin. Yeah. No,
So
that's true. That's true. But we're not, it's, it tastes a lot better in the sunshine. And today is the 15th of August and it's been pouring wet, grey and cloudy all day. And that's not the same as being sat in Santo Domingo or wherever you might be drinking a little bit of rum. So it's
that's very true. In the morning, you drink tea. Go have rum when you're on vacation. When you're hopefully you go again to the winter leagues or the West Indies, wherever
yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
more cricket
Yeah.
air quotes work.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
teasing.
No, yeah, it's true. It's true.
Andy, I would love to keep talking to you, but I also don't want to take up too much of your time.
No worries at all.
Let us know where we can find your work, anything on social
Yeah.
media that you want to share with us.
Yeah, so my website is andybrownstadiums.com and you can find me on Instagram at Andy Brown is an artist, on Twitter or X at Andy B is an artist. And that's probably it. But Andy Brown is an artist, you'll find me. Google Andy Brown, you'll get me.
By the way, another suggestion, your next monarch portrait from now
Oh, yeah.
King Charles III,
Yeah.
maybe Twinnings?
Yeah.
Because I've been
Well,
drinking that for years, but I'm trying to move on from that to go to proper loose tea as opposed to
oh,
the the
that's
the
a nice way
Twinnings
to do
packet.
it. That's the real way to do it. Yeah, that's nice. When you get a little tin of it and all that, and a little strainer. Oh,
Used
beautiful.
tea leaves for the monarch.
I've done that already.
Oh,
That
never
was
mind.
actually one of the first. That was the first bit that got me to the tea bags, and then
Okay.
yeah, that's I've done that one. But yeah, I mean I've got to get back to that portrait, but it's it's there's a
Then
lot of work to do.
how about crumbs from the Sainsbury, which I used to love? They're little, the little, the taste of difference. I don't know if they use that advert anymore, but
Yeah, yeah,
the little like not cookies, but it's they came in a plastic box. They have like a little peanut butter on the top. They're little bite size something.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
those the leftovers from that. I don't know. The point is that this is your. I should do that. I shouldn't be telling you to
Do
do
it.
this.
Yeah, do it. Go for it. I like it.
Yeah,
Let's
I'll
see
do
what
it.
happens.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Talking with Andy about the West Indies and drinks and beers and rum to honor him and to honor you. In my hand, I have a drink called Imported Colonial Era Dark Rum from a distillery called George Bowman in the small South American country of Guyana. Guyana is sandwiched in between Venezuela, Suriname, and Brazil. And Guyana used to be a former British colony until sometime in the 1960s, I believe. You know, there's some history here with the rum that I'm holding in here. Maybe not the specific rum, but rum in general with America, with Guyana, with Britain, with France. When America was part of the British colonies, the British Parliament passed the Molasses Act of 1733. This imposed a tax on all non British colonial raw sugar, which the American merchants in New England would buy it in liquid form. We all know it as molasses, that thick, dark syrup. New England merchants would buy the molasses produced in the West Indies, what we call the Caribbean, that were made by slaves on these plantations, both in the British colonies and the French colonies. But the American businessmen would not buy British molasses, colonial molasses. They would buy the French one. Why? The French sold it for cheaper. And so this this really upset the British colonial, the plantation owners and the businessmen in the British West Indies in the Caribbean. And they told Parliament, do something about this. And so the British government decided to impose a tax and make it more expensive for the American businessmen, the merchants, to buy French. Well, obviously, because they wanted them to buy only British molasses. If they imposed a tax, it would make the British molasses cheaper, but it was still too expensive. What does this have to do with baseball? All right, calm down. We're getting to the end here. This Molasses Act of 1733 was one of the reasons that the colonies revolted 40 years later. It wasn't just the Molasses Act of 1733. It wasn't just the Sugar Act of 1764, which superseded this Molasses Act of 1733. It wasn't just the Stamp Act of 1765. It wasn't just the Boston Tea Party, because if it wasn't for all these acts and these taxes, you'd be playing cricket instead of baseball, and this would be called last call cricket. I'm going to have a quick drink, and while I'm doing that, feel free to check us out on Instagram and on Twitter. We're selling t-shirts. Find it in our notes. We've opened up a new YouTube channel, Last Call Baseball. Check it all out if you want. If you don't, keep drinking. Thanks for listening to Last Call Baseball. Be great and get home safe.